Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this NLA technical briefing on future-proofing kitchens. For those of you who don't know us, we're London's built environment community. For access to hundreds of events, research reports, exhibitions, and business-critical industry insights, become a member of NLA at nla.london and be part of the conversation. This event is part of our NLA technical and housing programmes, and I'd like to thank our programme champions, AECOM. Today, we are joined by Bloom's UK ergonomics expert, Amanda Hughes, live from their showroom in Milton Keynes, who will virtually take us through 3 different rooms that explore the history of fitted kitchens and touch on the myriad of issues impacting modern design today. I'd like to remind the audience that there will be a chance to ask some questions at the end, so please keep sending in your questions using the Q&A button on Zoom. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Amanda. Amanda, over to you. Thank you.
Where's my script, Kate? Thank you, Florence. And thank you all for joining me today. Welcome to what I hope will be an insightful and informative session. I'm sitting here in our fabulous UK showroom in Milton Keynes, and I will share some of the insights that we have gathered, Bloom has gathered globally over the last few decades, and some of my personal insights. I'm a trained chef, a passionate cook, and my career has seen me go from working in commercial kitchens to helping to design those in domestic settings. So I now work for Bloom in the field of aging and ergonomics. This is a story of 3 parts. It's always good to go backwards before looking forwards. So firstly, we're going to take a look together at the potted history of the fitted kitchen. How did we end up here? Secondly, the current design thinking and its obvious challenges. And thirdly, the simple design changes that you can adopt to ensure spaces are age-centric and future-proofed. Now, I have a wonderful team helping me today. I've got Kate, Ryan, and Hope working hard in the background, so it all runs smoothly and to time. As Florence has already said, the Q&A is already open, so if you have any comments or questions as we go along, please feel free to pop them in there. We've allowed some time to address these at the end, but obviously if we can't tackle them all today, we'll get back to you at some point. So firstly, just a little bit about Bloom. Who are we and what do we do? Well, we've been operating since 1952, and we're an Austrian family-owned business with a turnover of approximately 2.4 billion euros. We export across 120 countries, and we manufacture in 5, with 33 subsidiary offices globally. So at our core, we manufacture a large proportion of the world's furniture fittings. Now that's what we're best known for. But alongside this, we also invest 8 to 10% of turnover in global research. And we are passionate about everything from small living spaces, hydroponics, urban farming, food waste, and everything connected with improving the quality of our living spaces. Ryan, can you please play the short Bloom introduction movie for everyone? So, welcome back. In this first segment, I would like to go back in history before looking forwards to the present day and beyond. How did the kitchens we are all familiar with today come to life? Well, since 1952, Bloom has been fascinated by the kitchens in our homes and the changes we have witnessed in their evolution. Bloom must understand the full theatre in which we work to fully understand the needs of today's consumers. From air fryers to air fryers, nothing remains still for long, and we watch and monitor these trends to offer the best possible solutions. So the modern kitchen, it's a fascinating journey with so many inspirational, pioneering women at its heart. I don't have time to go right back to open fires today, so we're going to start this journey in 1850 and just pick out a few highlights for you. So research on working heights was already taking place in 1850. They knew that if you worked too long at the wrong height worktop, this was going to result in poor posture and bad backs. Now we jump forward 30 years to the publication in 1919 of Household Engineering by Christina Fredericks. She was an American home economist and was interested in Taylorism and applied this to conducting experiments in her New York home. So one of the most famous, depicted here from 1922, was the string study. She recognised unplanned, unorganised layouts meant more work and was inefficient. I just love her quote on why so many kitchens make you do more work than is necessary. It is, in her opinion, because both the fixed and portable equipment are not placed in the right relation for an optimal kitchen flow. Instead, equipment is more commonly placed wherever there happens to be space left after cutting in all the doors and windows. She was a huge advocate for designing kitchens that leaned into the will of the user and not the other way around. So waste your time and energy or conserve your time and steps. It's a fascinating read that still resonates today. So another fascinating development came in 1926. This was when the Austrian architect Marguerite Schutt-Lehocki was approached by Ernest May to help design the new Frankfurt, an affordable public housing program that was started in 1925 and completed in 1931 to resolve Frankfurt's housing shortage. Amongst other contributions to this was her now world-famous Frankfurt kitchen design, a milestone of domestic architecture. It was the first early prototype of the built-in kitchen model, which is now so prevalent in the Western world, an iconic design, and in my opinion, one that all interior architects and designers should be well versed in. She took inspiration from a railroad dining car's working efficiency and some scientific research from Frederick Winslow Taylor, amongst other influences, to perfect her design for a housewife's laboratory. It's as relevant today as it was then, and so many of her design solutions can be applied to the modern kitchen. Small living spaces, the kitchen was just 1.9 by 3.4 meters. Wow, she packed a whole lot in. Ergonomics, she had different height worktops for sitting and standing tasks, which would help with today's multi-generational living and aging in place solutions. And she focused on organized and tidy storage. Everything had a home and a function. So many glorious details. There aren't many full original examples around, but I am lucky enough to have a set of 6 original hoppers. The V&A Museum acquired one in 2006, and this was used as part of an exhibition entitled Modernism, Designing a New World. The big difference being is she went from an open plan environment where households were cooking, bathing, and even sleeping to one closed room. Now, she felt it was important to separate domestic tasks from relaxing. We now view cooking completely differently. A chore for some still, yes, but more often as a hobby or a pleasant pastime and a relaxing and enjoyable experience. Now, the crazy fact about Marguerite is she never actually cooked, preferring to go out to the pub to eat. She approached this purely from an architectural and scientific background. She was 102 when she died in 2000, and we could do a whole webinar on this and future adaptations, which is again all captivating reading, but jump forward to 1927. Now, the key to any preparation or work area is having all your equipment and tools exactly where you need them and at the right time in the production process. So to this end, Adolf Schmeck started to think about zoning and grouping tasks and equipment in the kitchen into like-minded areas. He published a compilation of kitchen appliances and the best way to group these in a domestic setting. So all of this research, along with some new insight, brings us neatly onto the working triangle of the 1950s. But it was the work of another inspirational woman, Lillian Moller-Gilbraith, much earlier, that informed this design principle. An industrial psychologist and engineer in the 1920s, she was working on optimizing kitchen layouts and went on to work for the Brooklyn Borough Gas Company. Her kitchen practical was unveiled in 1929 and was the culmination of her research on motion savings. The University of Illinois School of Architecture used this and other design studies to coin the working triangle. They were hoping to standardize construction methods and reduce costs. The principle was based on 3 zones and a 1-person operation. An interesting fact about Lillian is she had 12 children, and some of them wrote about her and their experiences in their home kitchen. It was later turned into a film, Cheaper by the Dozen. As you can see, there is a rich tapestry and heritage to the history of kitchens, but what happens next? Not a great deal. There has been a big evolution in styles of cooking and available ingredients, and the appliance sector has continued to develop new innovative products. Here at Bloom, we've been doing our own scientific research, started in 2003, and is an ongoing study today. We asked ourselves what today's consumers wanted. Did the working triangle still hold up to today's lifestyles? And how have the needs of homeowners changed? What do we now require from the heart of our modern homes? Is the current kitchen model still fit for purpose? How could it be improved to cope with an aging population? The findings of this study were fascinating to us and informed the design solutions we here at Bloom adopt. One of the outcomes depicted here is this heat map. So despite wanting more storage, we tend to go down the path of least resistance and only use a small majority of our space on a regular basis. Now, in the second half, I'm going to share with you some of these findings, the challenges impacting our current design thinking, the design elements we can adopt to overcome these, and the positive impacts they can have not only to aging, but everyone who uses the space. Ryan, can you please play the research movie for everyone?
This is a hinge. 70 grams of hardened steel formed with the highest precision, pressed, punched and assembled. Just one of more than 2,800 possible furniture fittings in a kitchen. In a kitchen that measures 9.3 square meters on average. Enough space for a person to move 462 meters, which is the energy content of 400 grams of oranges. Today's kitchen is equipped with 72 cooking utensils and accommodates 250 kilograms of storage items. People spend 2 to 3 hours in their kitchen on a normal day, for example, to cook food. A quick lunch, a 3-course meal. Whatever. Food is prepared in 25 to 72 steps. Boil water, chop parsley, peel potatoes. Where's the potato peeler? The probability of finding the peeler in under 5 seconds is 70%. A person moves around 26 kilograms of items daily in a kitchen. To do so, they bend down more than 15 times and use the majority of their 650 muscles. Wall cabinets with lift systems open at a touch with a simple finger pressure. The opening sound is 16.8 decibels, which is almost imperceptible to the human ear, not even to those who normally hear everything. An average kitchen is equipped with 7 drawers, 20 hinges, and 1 wall cabinet lift system. They're all opened and closed more than 80 times a day. That's 537,600 times in the lifetime of the furniture, which is precisely 20 years if you're doing the sums in your head. The know-how of 350 experts and the findings of at least 14 studies have gone into every individual component of this kitchen. Why is precision so important to us? Because we want to understand people's needs in the kitchen and in every other living space. This is the source of our inspiration. Bloom Inspirations, designed for living, made for life.
So hey guys, welcome back. That was a whistle-stop tour of domestic architecture as it pertains to kitchens. I would now like to turn the spotlight on you for 5 minutes and ask you to think about your current kitchen for a minute. Imagine you're getting a new one tomorrow and you must go home tonight and remove all of the contents. I'm kind of going to give you a supermarket trolley to hold all of your lovely things. So that's all the crockery, the tins, equipment, everything that's not fixed down. Think about how many you could fill. If you've ever moved house and emptied a loft or shed, you will no doubt have said things like, where is it all coming from? I forgot we had that, or couldn't locate it, so bought a new one. The likely scenario is the same applies to your kitchen. The surprising findings from studies we've conducted is an average of 14. The reason it's so high is we can't see, can't find, and are generally blind to most of the contents. So the average UK kitchen lasts for 15 to 20 years. And we only buy 2 or 3 from scratch in a lifetime. In conclusion, we're not going to do it often, and we are going to have to live with the decisions we've made for quite some considerable time. Here at the Bloom Design Centre, we are lucky enough to have some innovative kitchens it stopped working, Kate, to test out our designs and to kind of look at our design research, innovative living spaces on display. And I'm now going to take you on a journey of discovery as we look at some of the pitfalls of today's box kitchen, comparing these classic design solutions with a more innovative, human-centric, ergonomic and aging supportive approach. Apologies in advance to Kate behind the camera, who is going to keep up with me as I move around the space. So let's take storage as our first challenge. The current approach to storage in most kitchens is cupboards with internal shelves. And we store most of our dried goods in one of these. If you're lucky enough to have a large shelved cupboard like this one, you are a little better off, as most of us tend to have top cupboards and base units. We scatter our dried goods across the kitchen and don't have the luxury of keeping them all in one specific zone. So we've got tins here, baking there, cereal boxes wherever they fit. The pitfall to this method of design is visibility and accessibility, We are blind to most of the contents, and subsequently stuff gets forgotten or goes out of date, and we repeat buy or don't buy at all. This is particularly relevant for the elderly whose memory recall is declining. If they can't see it, they assume they don't have it or it's lost. If, like me, you like to go down the path of least resistance, you will inevitably take what you can from the front 20 to 30%. That out-of-date tin of baked beans from 2015 forever in the back row. Those 3 jars of paprika or that Tupperware lid lost to the parts of the kitchen we never go. As we age, we lose flexibility in our joints, we shrink, our anthropometrics change. The thought of bending down at low level becomes less of an option for us. We also lose visual acuity as we age. Hunting in the back of dark cupboards loses its appeal. As we age, our usable space shrinks, and we avoid changes in our neutral posture where possible. There are lots of shiny alternatives in the market to resolve this, but in my personal opinion, you have now added extra challenges such as reduced storage, limited weight capacity, and a potential repair bill beyond the short warranty. Hand strength deteriorates with age, and arthritis impacts dexterity, making operating one of these a challenge for the elderly or mobility impaired. The design solution to overcome these pitfalls is a simple drawed larder solution. You now have full visibility of the contents right into the back, supporting visual recall for shopping and replenishing. You have a system of organization and zoning, especially if, like me, you forget where you put something. So going back to the principles of Adolf Schmeck, everyone in the household knows where everything lives, and it has a dedicated home, making for a more harmonious space. The drag and resistance are minimal, which means operating is as simple as a 1-finger glide, regardless of size and weight. Especially important, as I've touched on, when we start to lose muscle strength and dexterity in our hands and upper arms. So from a sustainable standpoint, this solution is also going to last for the lifetime of the furniture. The other advantage is full storage capacity, no wasted space, and less of a stoop to reach items lower down. With the aging population growing and wanting to remain in place for longer, we need to be designing kitchens that take the strain. They bend to the will of us and not the other way around. The great thing is you don't need a massive space, and these can be retrofitted into an existing cupboard or designed in any widths from 300 to 1400 millimeters. Now, we've talked a lot about some of the benefits of including a drawed larder solution in your designs, but drawers are the key if you want to revolutionize the kitchen for a more ergonomically sustainable and aging-centric space in the home. The cupboard is dead, long live the drawer. But why do I feel this way? I use one simple argument with my clients to demonstrate just how impractical cupboards really are. Imagine standing at a base unit cupboard and you're in a neutral position. Kate, can you just sort out the apologies? Yeah, auto cue. It's great when you're doing live TV, isn't it? Nothing ever works in real life. It works in the trial, but never works in real life. So imagine you don't change your posture at all. No bending, crouching, or stooping. What is your visibility like of the contents? Honestly, it's not great. So let's be generous and say 10%. What about your accessibility? Again, it's not great, so virtually none. The only way you can improve your lot is to bend, stoop, or crouch down at low level to get what you need. Now imagine doing this as you age or having mobility issues. The other major pitfall with cupboards is the organization and storage. To take full advantage of the space, you stack one item on top of the other, and you must get stuff out to reach other stuff and take other stuff out to put stuff back. How inefficient. Marguerite Schuttler-Hotzky would not approve. With drawers, you gain back control, accessibility, visibility, functionality, and the option to organize and create internal division. Never lose that bottle opener again. Create a harmonious space that works for all users. Let the back of the cupboard come to you. The under sink disaster that we've all had to contend with at some point is now an organized, visible, accessible, and functional unit. Not to be too depressing, but as we've already hinted at, our flexibility and reach changes. We also shrink as we age. But our eyesight is also deteriorating. Our visual acuity, lines blur, and we don't see colour in the same way. We may have the onset of glaucoma or cataracts. The other thing that happens is our field of vision changes. Our peripheral vision narrows. So not necessarily just confined to the elderly. I think we've all banged our heads on cupboard doors at some point. Emptying the dishwasher or looking for stuff in the base unit means head banging potential. So back in Christina Frederick and Margaret Schuttler-Hotzky's day, the kitchen was mostly the realm of one. And these days it can be the major highway through our homes. As such, we may have multiple users. Doors restrict views. They don't allow for multiple users. And the only thing you are compelled to do once opened is to close as quickly as possible. Our research indicates that on average, the doors and drawers are opened and closed up to 80 times a day in the average kitchen. 50 of those are in the base units at low level. Imagine there was a more ergonomic, practical solution that allowed for a new innovative approach. Lift systems overcome this. You could then work alongside others in the space without having to duck around doors. All your items on display and accessible. Let's go one step further. You can already operate these with the touch of a button. Now, imagine in the future, we will be able to operate via voice control. The smart connected kitchen will keep a record of all our food and the location of all our equipment. Our favorite recipes on demand. The technologies already exist, and the smart kitchen of the future is not far away. So just to recap, when designing spaces for my clients, regardless of the space available or the age of the occupants, I always advocate drawers in place of boxes, lift solutions in place of doors, drawered larder solutions as opposed to shelves. The aim for me is to design from the inside out and the ground up, and to think not only about today's need, but future changes. And this brings me onto a little personal insight of mine. in terms of space, the blind corner, named appropriately for the actual outcome you are going to achieve. We can't avoid corners in the majority of kitchens, but we do always lose. The phrase I often quote is round peg in a square hole. We spend a lot of design thinking and budget on trying to improve its lot. Personally, the only solution I advocate for is blocking it off. It's a hard sell, I agree. But as the kitchen and the occupants age together, it will get used less and less. It will be overfilled, inaccessible, and a constant area of frustration. The house I currently occupy has a U-shaped kitchen with 2 such corners. Far more beneficial and practical is to block it off and include accessible, visible, functional drawers. In terms of volume, you have all the function and none of the stress of overloading, overstacking, and no hope of finding. I'm sure between you all, you can think of no end of solutions for the available gap. Top-mounted food waste bins, herb planters, waste pipes, or wine coolers. There is a huge amount of research and data in the public arena, but I think we can all agree that we are an aging population. The Centre for Aging Better quotes, "People are living longer, but society is unprepared for this aging population. By 2042, trends predict we may have 1 in 4 will be 65 and over. That's a quarter of the UK population, and surveys suggest they want to remain in their homes and age in place. We need to create a new standard for building homes going forward, and I think we could make a huge contribution in the kitchen spaces." Lastly, I would like to take you back to the working triangle of the 50s. For the time, it was revolutionary and based on sound principle. I still hear both designers and end consumers quoting it. In today's modern kitchen spaces, however, it doesn't really work. Our research leads us into the new thinking of 5 unique zones we need to consider in design, creating inspirational, dynamic spaces. Our consumables, non-consumables, our cleaning, prepping, and cooking zones. That each zone correlates to the next, and in time and motion studies, you are only traveling in one direction, thus conserving energy. I can't help think Frederick Winslow Taylor would be a huge fan. Imagine a dynamic space leaning into the will of the user, saving you unnecessary work. If all the zones are factored in and considered in relation to the storage and tasks performed, it will no doubt be suitable from all users from 5 to 95. There are so many other areas to the kitchen we can optimize. We don't need to put up with the box on the wall method any longer. Whilst Bloom continues its research globally and explores the possibility of smart connected kitchens, hydroponics, small living, assisted living and aging, I look forward to a new era and a kitchen revolution. So the next big question we're asking ourselves is, will anyone need one in the home of 2050? And if so, how will the future needs and lifestyle changes affect how we design it? There is a huge amount of research and data in the public arena, but I think we can all agree, aging populations, so we need to start thinking about those. And that really is, yeah, a whistle-stop tour of this design centre here at Bloom that we look at when we're thinking about designing practical solutions for the home. An amazing amount of kitchens, and that whole thing about bending and stooping down at low level, we don't have to put up with that. So that's something we can try to design out or factor out. We also use an item in the showroom called the Age Explorer, and it's a scientifically designed suit, which if Kate follows me to the next room, I can show you all what it looks like. And this is how we replicate old age and kind of just kind of, it's a really interesting scientific concept. You could just stay there, Kate. So we use this suit to deliver lunch and learns to colleges, universities, architectural practices. And we put students in this suit and it replicates aging. So muscle wastage, arthritis, how you would cope in terms of fitted furniture in bending and stooping. We can also replicate various different eye diseases. So we really spend a lot of time looking at how this impacts people in the homes and how we can start designing kitchen spaces for other living areas to make them a lot more optimal and avoid all of that unnecessary bending, stooping and lifting. And I have another model across this back wall that illustrates perfectly well how that design thinking might work out in your homes or your designs. I'm hoping after this session today, you're going to start thinking about designing your kitchens differently and going home and taking a good look at your personal kitchen space and seeing how you might be able to make adaptations to that or how you might have designed it differently in the future. So we have the good, better, best model here. And as I said in the previous room, we looked at shelved larders as a good, 6 or 7 people in a household, you need plenty of storage. And you can ram this with bags of pasta, in COVID times, bags of pasta toilet roll, and you can fill it to your heart's content. But when you actually can't see what's at the back, and I think we've all done it, haven't we? We've gone to the supermarket to buy our shopping. Do we have coconut milk? Don't know, can't see. Have we got 3 half open jars of soy sauce? Yeah, potentially. Out of date cinnamon and herbs and spices. A classic example of this is my mum. She's 76 and she's got a huge kitchen space and she stopped putting stuff away in the cupboards. She instead takes things out of the dishwasher or the drawers, the plates, the cups, and she started just leaving them on the worktop. Her cupboard's based on the box method. So she's got boxes top and bottom. And some we've retrofitted to drawers, but mostly they are still boxes. And she's just started leaving it all on the work surface because if she puts it away in the cupboards, she can't find it. And she started to only use the very front 20 or 30%. I think drawers make a huge difference to that usability, functionality, visibility, looking at your space in a completely different way, and potentially not having as many boxes, but going more for functionality. And one of the models we talk about here is a lot of kitchens are purchased based on an aesthetic need, which is great because nobody wants an ugly kitchen, based on an aesthetic need. And that's great in year 1 or 2. The average UK kitchen lasts 15 to 20 years. and we only buy 2 or 3 from scratch in a lifetime. So year 1 or 2, the aesthetic appeal is there and you love the space anyway. And by the time you get to year 5, 6, 7, and 8, you're less concerned about the aesthetic and more concerned about the functionality and whether this kitchen space actually works for you. And I think drawers play a huge key role in that. Less boxes, you know, less is more, in my opinion, when it comes to designing the kitchen spaces. And drawers kind of win every day over just unusable, unorganized, unvisible storage in terms of the box storage method. Again, like I said in the previous room, there are other solutions on the market. So good, better, you know, personal preference or opinion there. But when you're looking at a solution like this, I think it's you know, you do have to bend down to a point, but with other applications like servo drive, you could actually hit that with your leg and it would come out to you if you couldn't use your hands or your arms. So electric assisted, you don't have to bend down as far. You can see right to the back of the cupboard for replenishing later, and you can stack to the full height of the basket, so you're not losing any wasted space at all. And it comes with a lifetime guarantee, lifetime of the furniture. So even if this kitchen's still going 20, 30, 40 years later, and I think when we're looking at upgrading existing housing stock or social housing stock, putting in these solutions that we know are going to last a lifetime, and it doesn't matter who lives in the property, whether it's a young couple just starting out in life, whether it's a 95-year-old who's trying to still live independently in their own home, this kind of solution leans into that design thinking where we're looking at sustainable, long-term, and aging in place in that aging in place solution as well. The same again, this model clearly demonstrates how I can comfortably work in possibly a small studio flat or kitchen space. I can empty my dishwasher and bend down without fear of banging my head, and other people can operate in and around me without having to say, oh, can I just get in here? Can I just get in there? Can I just shut this cupboard? So I think lift systems, again, is a future thing to start thinking about, moving away from just cupboard doors. Aesthetically, for me as well, fairly pleasing because all the lines follow one into the other. One of the arguments I kind of say to clients, if I'm designing a kitchen for them, I talk to clients about, we're off to the supermarket, we're asking ourselves if we need any dishwasher salt or washing up liquid. We don't know. We can't see, we've got no visibility. And the only way we can tell is by bending down, dragging it all out. And you're lucky enough these days in a new build, if you actually get a shelf under your kitchen sink, drag it all out to see what we can actually find or what we need to replenish. And if just by simply adding in drawers, you know, we've got that clear line of visibility. Small items are contained as well. So there's not really option in here for small items unless you start buying additional baskets or racks or, you know, other solutions. But a drawer, I think, would make a huge difference to the homeowner and a huge investment. When buying a kitchen, somebody has going to have to make up to 200 decisions in this design process. Everything from layouts to building regulations to plumbing to waste pipes to flooring to lighting to countertops, up to 200 decisions. And unfortunately, it's already, I mean, as you can see in this particular model, you know, 200 decisions, it's kind of already a little bit too late when you start thinking about organized, functional, visible, accessible kitchen spaces. And I think it's relevant for everybody, regardless of age, but I think it's really relevant as we're going into this aging population and people wanting to remain in their homes for longer and have that kind of extra support. It may mean the difference of someone staying in their home for an extra 5 years and not having to go into a care home setting or having carers in, because a lot of the benchmarks or tests that they do for if you can remain in your home is looking at whether you can make a cup of tea, cook for yourself, make a meal. And we're actually trying to foster that by thinking differently about how we look at these kitchen models. And it's a fascinating story, I think, would make for a good book. So, like you say, going back to Margaret Schuttler-Hotzky and Christina Fredericks, and all of the research that they did still holds up today and would really support this sustainability argument in terms of less packaging, a hopper system for storing our dried goods in, and the way they looked at those time and motion studies in terms of Taylorism. So I hope that's given you a little insight into Bloom. It's a lot to pack into 1 hour. My design kind of thinking, I suppose, around kitchen spaces and how drawers can have a huge impact on the actual user in those spaces. Yeah, and it's a lot to pack in, but I'd like to thank you so much for listening today. And if you'd like any more information, you know where to find us now. But I'm going to hand back to Catherine because we've now got time. I'm hoping loads of you have got loads of questions. You're going to challenge me and give me some questions to answer in this next Q&A session. And tell me, because I think I always learn something new every time I do one of these sessions or deliver a lunch and learn on aging. I always learn something from it. So I'm going to hand back to Catherine, but just thank you on behalf of me and Bloom for attending today. And I hope that's given you a little bit of the food for thought, excuse the pun, food for thought in your kitchen to think about designing the spaces in a different way. Catherine, back to Florence. Why am I saying Catherine? Florence.
That's okay.
There is a Catherine on the call.
There is a Catherine, yeah.
I'm not going crazy.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for taking us through such an interesting historical journey and ending on this sort of intergenerational design, which is fascinating. We've had a few questions come through in our Q&A button and a few other ones as well that I can see. So perhaps I'll start with a question from Diego here. What is the most important design feature in furniture making at the moment, and how the Internet of Things is shaping the soon-to-be kitchen of the future?
So can you go back to the question, Florence, because you completely froze and I didn't hear the question right from the get-go.
Oh, apologies. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes, sorry.
Great. There's a question here from Diego. What is the most important design feature in furniture making at the moment? And how is the Internet of Things shaping the soon-to-be kitchen of the future?
So from our perspective, obviously, the Internet of Things, yeah, everybody can find everything at any point. I just, for me, in terms of furniture design, it's all about using sustainable materials. So the key is longevity. We've been through this era of throwaway furniture and buying furniture on a whim. And if I said the most important thing for me when purchasing furniture is long-term investment, not just for the here and now, thinking about how this is going to work for me, my growing family, my aging parents potentially that are going to have to move in at some point. If I was investing in a piece of furniture, I'd be wanting to look at the whole supply chain in terms of where the materials have come from, whether it's going to last me. And I think going back to an era when my in-laws first got married, they bought a dining room suite. They still have it. It's still in mint condition, still works for them. And the other thing is functionality. Aesthetic always wears off. Design, fashion always wears off. So I think if I'm going to invest in a piece of furniture, best I can buy in terms of affordance, best in terms of sustainability of materials, best in terms of functionality, because I know that trends are going to wear off. I would hate to think that I would keep it for 3 or 4 years. My lifestyle changes, my house changes. So classic pieces that are going to last a long time. And people are more aware and more savvy. And I think the smart connected homes of the future I mean, when we're doing our research and designing in terms of the Internet of Things, we're looking at food waste. So a third of all the food produced globally ends up in landfill. Is that a scary thought? You know, there's half bags of salad, that tin of baked beans I mentioned from earlier ending up in landfill. And I think what we've got to start doing is thinking about food, how we cook, how and looking at barcode scanning. That's going to be a new thing, is looking at food waste and barcodes and best before dates. You know, our kitchens know what we've got, know how we can store it to optimize it, and try to get us to use it at the most appropriate time. So there's loads of smart home connected solutions looking at our health, our diets, and fostering that heritage cooking as well, which I think's got lost a little bit along the way, hasn't it? Everything's available online now, isn't it? But it's not quite the same as how your grandma might have made it years ago. Hope that answers the question. Next.
Great, thank you. We've got a question here on 5 kitchen zone layouts. How do you explain the 5 kitchen zone layouts to new clients and get them to buy into the improved functionality of that system over the more widely known working triangle? Okay,
that's a great question, and one that I'm really passionate about. If my client or any designers I meet mention the working triangle, I try to get them to park it there. Now, if it's an end consumer that I'm helping design a kitchen space, what I tend to do is give them quite a bit of homework. They probably hate me for it. But I take them back to say, right, 1950s, we don't drive the same cars as we did in 1950. They've come a long way, haven't they? We don't use the same phones we did in 1950. So why are we still designing kitchens based around a principle from the 1950s? We can now start looking at it in a different way. But what I get my clients to do is go home and take everything out of their current kitchen as a first step. What have they actually got? And if you've ever moved house and moved out and emptied a loft or a shed, you know you're going to say things to yourself like, where's it all coming from? I didn't realize we had so much stuff. And there's that Tupperware lid I lost 2 years ago, couldn't see. You'll be surprised how much stuff you've actually got. So the first way on this journey is to get your client to empty out their current kitchen. What do they use? What don't they use? What can they live with or not live without? And zone it themselves. So there's a platform online that you can use, which is called Zone Planner. Group it into zones of cooking, baking. You know, if someone's really into bread making, get that in a zone. If someone's a coffee snob, get that in a zone. Start zoning it for their lifestyle and take a photograph of it. And for me as a designer, that really helps me to start thinking about how I flex consumables, non-consumables, cleaning, prepping, and cooking. If my client shops daily for food and buys fresh, that consumables zone potentially needs to be smaller. If my client goes to Costco and buys in bulk, that consumables zone potentially needs to be bigger. 6 people in a household, you know, taking packed lunches to work and school, I'm immediately thinking that sounds like a lot of Tupperware, a lot of tin foil and sandwich bags, and a lot of water bottles. I need to factor that in. And I try to get them to think about these 5, grouping everything they own right now into these 5 zones. Get them to do the homework for you. Get them to photograph everything they've got. They will be surprised. The last thing, and this is a true story, but the last thing I'd want to do when I've designed a kitchen is at the end, someone says to me, right now, where do I put my 5 kg bag of dog food? And I go, oh, you didn't tell me you had a dog, or you bought your dog food in 5 kg. It's about getting under the skin of the client, but introducing those 5 zones and getting them to think about pulling all of their stuff out of their cupboard, because I suspect at the minute it's probably little. Catherine, Florence, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, you just froze.
All right.
But we're back now.
Okay.
I'm going to end on our final question here, which is, someone's designing a kitchen in a mansard roof space that has pitched walls. the main implication is that they can't get full height wall units, so will rely heavily on base units. Given this, is there anything you think they should consider?
I would just say drawers, drawers, drawers. You know, I always start, like I said earlier, design from the inside out and the ground up. If you get to worktop height and the ground up and you have covered every zone, if you can't fit any top, I'm not a big fan of top cupboards. If you can't fit lift systems in, I'm sure with drawers, you're going to make a huge difference in the base units anyway, if you can't put full height larders in. But I think just including drawers, and the other thing you need to think about is going wider. So you can go up to 1400 wide and you can go deeper. So if you're concentrating solely on the base unit, runners can go up to 720 millimeters deep. So you can extend what you're doing on the base units to give you extra storage capacity, and you can expand each drawer. Each time you put a different manufactured box in with a strut in the middle. So be brave, go 1400 wide, go 650 deep, and then this kitchen will all live in the base units. You may not need to think about additional storage in other areas. Think outside the box, go a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper, and think about putting internal dividing systems in. And then don't worry about the top, because I would leave them out completely. I would just go all base units, but wider. You probably gain up to extra 30% capacity by going wider and having full box sides on each drawer, rather than a gallery rail or an open side on a drawer. If you go full box height drawer, wider and deeper, you'll be able to get more functionality in the base units.
Fantastic. That's a great place to stop and bring this webinar to a close. I want to thank Amanda and the team at Bloom for a fantastic insight into kitchens today. And thank you to our audience for attending this morning's technical webinar. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you.